If someone had told me that the person I loved most would someday stab me in the back, I probably would have laughed. If someone had warned me that blood ties could ruthlessly destroy everything, I would have called it a cruel joke. But reality never asks your permission before grinding your trust into ashes. And then, that fateful day came, silent and cold like a blade beneath velvet. I lost everything because of the two people I trusted most in my life. My name is Camilla Dawson, 31 years old, a financial consultant living in Portland, Oregon. 6 years ago, I married Johnny Miller, a 33-year-old man I believed was my soulmate. We weren't perfect, no one is, but we knew how to love, to compromise, and to weather the storms of life together. Johnny worked as a project manager for a major construction company, and I still remember the day he proposed, his hands trembling from nerves under the sunset at Cannon Beach. I thought I had found forever happiness until Sierra, my younger sister, returned. Dear Dawson, 27 years old, had moved to Miami right after graduating high school. My family always proudly said she was adventurous and independent, but deep down I knew Sierra was always running away from responsibility. She had lived off her long-term boyfriend, a locally famous DJ named Marcus. They were together for almost 5 years, and during that time, Sierra only came home for Thanksgiving, staying just a few days before vanishing again. I was never close to Sierra. Though we shared the same mother, I never truly felt I had a real sister. Sierra had always been the spoiled child. When I asked my parents for $100 to attend a summer financial management program, they hesitated for an entire week. But when Sierra needed several $1,000s to buy pageant outfits, they dipped into their savings without a second thought. Back in high school, when I missed curfew by 30 minutes because of a team meeting, my parents took away my car keys for a whole month. Meanwhile, when Sierra, at 17, got caught drunk driving and the police called my parents, she merely got a mild scolding and was then treated to a shopping spree to relieve her stress. And so it wasn't surprising when Sierra's relationship failed. What shocked me was that her return would unleash a chain of disasters that would destroy my life. Sierra called me late one February night, when Portland was still brutally cold. Her voice was choked with sobs over the phone. Marcus left me, Camila. He moved to Atlanta with another man. I listened numbly, unsure how much to believe. I had only met Marcus twice, and he never struck me as someone living a double life. But I didn't argue. Sierra was desperate, and a part of me, the part that still believed in family, felt compelled to help. Come home. You can stay with Mom and Dad for a while, I said, feeling a strange ache deep inside. My parents, Cheryl and Paul Dawson, 58 and 60 years old, welcomed Sierra back as if they were rescuing a lost princess. Their failed daughter was pampered, coddled like a helpless child, while I was met with expectant, burdening stares. The eldest daughter called upon to help. Sierra had no job, no savings, no future plans. A week after she returned, my mother called me. You should talk to Johnny. She needs a job. You can't let your sister be unemployed out there. I swallowed the sigh that rose in my throat. Johnny, being the head of a department at a major construction company, often complained about needing people for support roles. Though hesitant, I mentioned it during dinner. Johnny thought for a moment, then nodded. If she's serious, I can recommend her for an interview, but I won't be playing favorites. I knew Johnny was strict when it came to work. He wasn't the type to mix personal and professional matters. I believed this could be an opportunity for Sierra to stand on her own feet, not a chance for disaster. Within 2 weeks, Sierra had landed a job in Johnny's project management department. I still vividly remember that night when the whole family gathered to celebrate at our favorite pizza restaurant. Sierra beamed next to Johnny, beer glass sparkling under the warm yellow lights, as if no shadows clung to her past. Then I told myself, this is the right thing. This is her chance to change. I had no idea that the nightmare had already begun, smoldering under that thin veneer of peace. At first, I convinced myself I was overreacting. How could I doubt Johnny? How could I suspect Sierra, the very person I had pulled back from the brink? But then, small details like poisoned needles began piercing my instincts, forcing me to wake up from my illusion. It started with their endless conversations. Whenever I came home after long, exhausting shifts at the financial firm, I would often find Johnny and Sierra chatting away in the living room, laughing too loudly. If I tried to join in, they'd glance at each other, and Sierra would casually say, "Oh, it's just work stuff, Camila. You wouldn't be interested." That offhand comment sliced deep into my self-worth like a thin, cruel blade. Once, I overheard them giggling in the kitchen. As I approached, the atmosphere abruptly froze. Johnny fumbled with the fridge, pretending to look for something. Sierra buried her face in her phone. I didn't question them. I simply stood there for a few seconds, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The unease crept over me like a shadow slithering into every crack. Another thing I couldn't overlook, Sierra's constant presence at my house, even when I wasn't there. Johnny worked a traditional 8 to 4:30 schedule while I worked from 10 to 7. That meant almost every afternoon, Johnny and Sierra had the house to themselves before I came home. The excuse was always the same. This work stuff, Camilla, she needs help with the new project. But what kind of project required my sister to hang out at my house every single day? One Tuesday, when I returned home, I found Sierra sprawled out on the sofa, legs dangling over the armrest, iced tea in hand, while Johnny sat beside her, both laughing at something on a laptop. When I walked in, Sierra jumped up almost too quickly, spilling some tea on the floor. Johnny slammed the laptop shut as if hiding something. "You're home. We were just watching a funny clip," Sierra explained, her voice pitched unusually high. I swallowed the storm rising in my chest, forced a stiff smile, and went into the kitchen. But that night, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to shake the heavy feeling gnawing at my gut. About 2 weeks later, something happened that shattered my thin veil of denial. I had a habit of making the bed neatly every morning before leaving for work. I always arranged the pillowcases so the open ends faced outward, a tiny ritual ingrained into my muscle memory. That day, when I returned home, I immediately noticed something wrong. The two pillows at the head of the bed had been flipped. The open ends were now facing inward, like someone had lain down, then awkwardly tried to fix them. I froze in the doorway, heart hammering against my ribs. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. Maybe I had remembered wrong. Maybe I had been careless that morning. I walked out of the room, pretending I hadn't seen anything. But deep inside, a fracture had begun to spread, widening with every passing second. That weekend, my family hosted an outdoor BBQ evening at my parents' house. Johnny and I arrived first. A little while later, Sierra showed up, wearing a tight-fitting maxi dress, grinning widely as if nothing in the world could bother her. I sat at the wooden table under the porch, idly chatting with my mom, when my gaze accidentally swept across the backyard. A fleeting moment, but it stabbed straight into my heart like a dagger. Johnny was walking across the grass when Sierra approached him, gently touching his arm. They stood closer than necessary. Sierra leaned in, whispered something into Johnny's ear that made him smile faintly. Then, as if time froze, their foreheads touched lightly. It lasted just a second, but for me, it was a living nightmare. Johnny flinched and quickly stepped back. Sierra turned to look at me, a half smirk full of provocation curling on her lips. Her gaze didn't shy away. On the contrary, it challenged me. "What are you going to do about it?" I tightened my grip around the water glass, my fingers turning white. Every nerve in my body screamed. I knew, deep in my soul, that this was no longer baseless suspicion. Something filthy, disgusting, and treacherous was festering right inside my home. That night, I sat alone in my car in the parking lot, hands trembling as they clutched the steering wheel. I no longer knew what to believe in. I had once foolishly thought love could survive any trial. But how could love exist when the ones you trusted most were suffocating you with every breath? I didn't know how I would face the awful truth. But deep down, I understood. The time for blind denial was over, and I would dig to the bottom of this truth, no matter what the cost. I knew I couldn't keep pretending to be blind any longer. The signs, the furtive glances, the accidental touches, they all pushed me to the brink. Johnny's silence, Sierra's sly smiles, they were poison drops leaking into my mind every single day. I needed an answer. I needed the truth, even if it would tear my heart to shreds. So I planned a weekend getaway, just the two of us, one last chance for Johnny to prove my suspicions wrong, or a chance for him to dig his own grave. We arrived in Seattle on a cold Saturday morning. The city was shrouded in fog, the damp air clinging to every breath. We rented a small room near the harbor, where from the balcony we could see faint silhouettes of boats drifting through the mist. That first night, we wandered around the city, had dinner at an old seafood restaurant, and sipped a few cocktails. Johnny was still Johnny, charming, open, as if no ghosts were haunting between us. When he held me on the way back to the hotel, I almost let myself believe it was all in my head. We made love that night, one last time, full of passion yet tinged with a silent sorrow. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. I lay there, listening to the rain tapping against the window, feeling a strange ache tighten around my heart. I knew, if I didn't ask now, I would never find the courage again. Johnny stepped out of the bathroom, his hair still dripping, a towel wrapped around his waist when I spoke. "Johnny." My voice dropped, sharp as a blade. "Are you sleeping with Sierra?" He froze. In that instant, I saw pure panic flash across his face before he tried to mask it with a blank expression. No denial, no excuses. Only the raw, repulsive truth. Johnny exhaled shakily, moved slowly to the bed, and slumped down at the edge. He buried his face in his hands, stammering. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." "How long?" I asked, my voice ice cold. "Analyze? About 3 months," he whispered, unable to meet my eyes. 3 months. 3 months I had lived inside a cruel joke without knowing it. I bit my lip so hard it bled just to keep from screaming. "Did you—" I paused to choke down the rising bile. "Did you do it? In my bed?" Johnny hung his head lower, his entire body shrinking like a child caught red-handed. He didn't answer, but the way his shoulders trembled told me everything. I stood up, my heart pounding so violently I thought it would burst through my chest. I yanked the suitcase from the corner, shoving clothes into it with trembling hands, barely able to sort anything properly. Johnny rushed toward me, trying to grab my arm. "Camilla, please, don't go. Let me explain. Just once." I ripped my arm free, staring into the eyes that once held my whole sky. "Explain what? That you couldn't resist? That I was too stupid and deserved betrayal? That my sister is somehow better than me?" I let out a dry, hollow laugh that seemed to suck all the warmth out of the room. "You made your choice, Johnny, and now I'm making mine." Without looking back, I walked out of the room, out of the mess disguised as the happiness I once believed in. I drove 3 hours straight back to Portland, tears blurring the road signs, the streets, the entire world around me. I felt nothing anymore. Inside, I had died. Only an empty shell dragged itself home. Johnny called nonstop, texts, voicemails, emails, all begging for forgiveness, promising change, offering excuses. I didn't read. I didn't listen. He no longer had a voice in my life. The next day, I contacted a divorce lawyer. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my friends. I bundled up my grief into a cold, impenetrable shield, quietly preparing for the battle ahead. 6 years. 6 years of love, trust, and hope. Gone. Evaporated into nothingness because of 2 traitors. I used to think betrayal would come like a violent storm, loud and raging. But no. It came in silence, a dagger sliding into my back when I least expected it, leaving me to bleed out alone. At that moment, I swore I would never let anyone destroy me again. I once thought losing Johnny was the cruelest thing that could happen. But the deepest wound came from the place I least expected. My own family. 3 days after I returned to Portland, my mother called. But she didn't ask if I was okay. No words of comfort, no concern. Her voice was light, almost cheerful, as if everything that had happened was just a minor misunderstanding. You should come by the house, my mom said, as casually as inviting me to a birthday party. We need to have a family talk. I foolishly thought maybe, just maybe, they would be on my side this time, that they would see the pain in my eyes and finally stand for what was right. I was so naive. When I stepped into the living room, the air felt frozen. My dad, Paul, sat hunched over a cup of cold coffee. My mom, Cheryl, wore a fake sugary smile. And Sierra, my sister, the one who had stolen everything from me, lounged on the sofa, scrolling on her phone without a care in the world. Camilla, my mother began, her voice even and patronizing, as if lecturing a misbehaving child. What happened? It just happened. Nobody wanted it. But you need to understand, Sierra. I glared at her, every cell in my body screaming. Understand what? Understand that she betrayed me? Understand that my husband and my own sister slept together in my bed? Cheryl sighed heavily, as if I were overreacting. Sierra is only human. She has the right to seek happiness. Camilla. I stood frozen. Those words, those syllables, tore through my chest like razor blades. Happiness? I spat each word. Stealing your sister's husband is considered seeking happiness? Sierra looked up, smirking. I didn't steal him. If he really loved you, you wouldn't have lost him. That sentence hit like a hammer smashing my heart. My father remained silent. He never lifted his head, never uttered a single word to defend me. The man who used to carry me on his shoulders on summer afternoons was now nothing but a frail, faded ghost. My mother stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on my shoulder, a touch that felt like acid poured onto an open wound. You need to forgive. Family is more important than anything. I removed her hand coldly. Family? If this is family, I'd rather have none. I turned on my heel, my back stiff, my heart shattering into pieces. But the pain didn't stop there. A few days later, while sipping coffee at my usual cafe, I received a text from an old friend. Camilla, have you seen Sierra's latest post? I opened Instagram, and my heart felt like it was being crushed. A photo, Johnny hugging Sierra from behind, the two standing in the middle of a radiant sunflower field. Sierra tilted her head, smiling sweetly at the camera. Johnny pressed a gentle kiss on her cheek. The caption below, feeling blessed to finally be with my soulmate. I dropped my phone onto the table, my entire body trembling with fury and disgust. They hadn't just betrayed me, they were publicly mocking me. And as if that wasn't enough, just a few hours later, Sierra texted me. Hey, sis, sorry if the post upset you. Hope we can still be close. Love you. I let out a cold, bone-chilling laugh. Close? I muttered, my voice dry like scorched paper. Close to a snake? No reply, no excuses. I silently blocked Sierra on every social platform. I deleted Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I had no desire to witness any more of their filth. From that day forward, I swore. Never again would I allow those blood ties to touch even a corner of my life. But even after locking every door, I knew the ghost of betrayal still lurked somewhere, waiting for another chance to strike. And I had to be ready, no matter the price. After witnessing that image, Sierra and Johnny hand in hand as if no stain of guilt clung to them, something inside me died completely. No more tears. No more clinging. No more self-torturing questions like, why me? There was only one choice left. Cut it off, cleanly, without looking back. The very next morning, I took action. My phone rang nonstop, texts from my mother, missed calls from my father, even Johnny stubbornly sending those pathetic, deceitful messages. I didn't read. I didn't listen. I didn't want a single rotten excuse to seep into my ears ever again. I blocked them all. My mother, my father, Sierra, Johnny, everyone. My contact list shrank down to just a few names. my lawyer, my best friend, and a few trusted co-workers, the ones who truly stood by me. The next decision came easier than breathing. I would sell the house I once thought would be my forever home, the place where I laughed, cried, and dreamed of children playing in the yard, was now nothing more than a cold, rotting carcass of memories. Every wall, every door, every window soaked in betrayal. I hired a real estate agency that same week. They suggested some minor renovations to boost the price, but I refused. I wouldn't put another penny into that place. I just wanted to be free of it as fast as possible. The house went on the market, and in less than 3 weeks, a young couple bought it, eager to start their own dream. When I signed the final papers, my hand was steady, my face emotionless. Not a tear, not a second glance. With the sale proceeds in hand, I started planning my escape from Portland. I chose Minneapolis, Minnesota, a city far away, over 1,700 miles distant, where the winters were brutal, but the peace would be worth every frozen breath. No one in my family had ever set foot there. No one would know anyone I knew, and that was exactly what I needed. A place where the shadows of betrayal could never follow. I kept everything secret, no social media updates, no announcements to anyone except my lawyer and my one true friend, Maya. I even hired a moving company that shipped to a false address first, just in case. The day I moved, it rained. I stood on the crumbling front steps, looking at the house one last time. No emotions, no regrets, only the feeling of release, as if the last invisible chains had finally snapped, granting me the freedom I should have claimed long ago. The moving truck pulled away from Portland as raindrops streaked across the windshield, blurring the familiar cityscape into nothingness. I didn't look back. I didn't need. I was starting over. From nothing. When I set foot at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, the biting cold seeped into my skin, but I smiled. This chill, at least, was 100 times more bearable than the coldness in the eyes of those who once called themselves family. I rented a small apartment in the suburbs, nestled among streets lined with maple trees. The apartment was old but cozy, just enough for me and only for me. No one knew where I was. No one knew what I was doing. And I owed no one any explanations. I changed my phone number, shut down all my old social media accounts, and opened new ones under a name barely recognizable. I started a new job at a small financial firm where no one cared about my past. They only cared that I did my work well. Every morning, I brewed myself a hot cup of coffee, stood by the window watching the snow fall, and reminded myself, Camila, you survived, and you will live even better. Of course, sometimes the memories returned. Old moments gnawed at my mind during long, silent nights. Questions with no answers. Invisible scars throbbing whenever a familiar name surfaced. But I didn't let myself drown in pain anymore. I had paid enough. Now was the time to live for myself. I didn't know what the future would bring. I didn't know if my heart could ever love again. But I knew one thing. I would never, ever let anyone into my life without passing through the doors I controlled. I thought I had cut everything off. I thought locking the doors, changing numbers, and leaving the past behind would keep the ghost of betrayal from finding me. I was wrong. One autumn afternoon, when I came back to my little apartment after work, a large, cream-colored envelope was waiting at my door. No sender's name, no familiar signs. I sat on the chair near the entrance, my hands trembling slightly as I tore the wrapper. Inside was a lavish wedding invitation. The names printed boldly on the front. Sierra Dawson and Johnny Miller. My heart tightened. And that wasn't all. There was a handwritten letter in the familiar handwriting of my mother. Dear Camilla, family is family no matter what happens. We need to move past old mistakes and head toward a better future. We hope you will come to Sierra's wedding. Being her bridesmaid would be so meaningful if it were you. This is an opportunity to heal all wounds. Please think carefully. Love, Mom. I left. a dry, wild laugh echoing through my small apartment. Bridesmaid? For the one who stabbed me in the back? For the man who destroyed my life? If cruelty had a shape, it would be this invitation, beautiful on the outside, rotten within. I crumpled the invitation and threw it straight into the trash without even checking the date. I tore my mother's letter into tiny pieces and tossed them out into the wind from the balcony. I thought that was the peak of shamelessness, but I was wrong. The nightmare wasn't over. A week later, on a Friday evening, as I was quietly enjoying coffee at a nearby cafe, the door swung open. A tall figure stepped in, hesitating as he scanned the room. I almost didn't believe my eyes. Funny, he spotted me immediately. His gray eyes lit up, showing pure desperation. I shot up from my seat, my whole body tense like a stretched wire. Johnny approached my table, awkwardly. Camilla, please, just 5 minutes. I beg you. I sat back down, coldly, arms crossed. Walk fast. Johnny pulled out a chair, sitting across from me. He looked thinner. Dark circles hollowed his eyes. His haggard appearance stirred not a single ounce of sympathy in me. I made a terrible mistake, Johnny rasped. Sierra, she cheated on me. I raised an eyebrow. What a surprise, my voice dripping sweetly like acid. Johnny swallowed hard, his fists clenching. She had multiple affairs, with several other men, even some who were married. I stayed silent, savoring each word like an antidote to the years of my foolishness. I was an idiot, Johnny whispered. I lost everything. I lost you. I lost myself. I leaned back in my chair, staring straight at the man who once shattered my heart. And now you're here, expecting what? Pity? Forgiveness? Johnny looked at me like a drowning man clinging to his last hope. I don't expect you to come back. I just want a chance to apologize. I laughed. A bitter, victorious laugh. Apologize? After everything you and Sierra did, you think 5 minutes on your knees can make up for 6 years I wasted on you? I stood up, bent down, and whispered into his ear. You made your choice, Johnny. And now get the hell out of my life, forever. Johnny looked up at me in despair, but I had already turned away, walking out of the cafe without a glance back. Outside, late autumn rain began to fall, cold but cleansing. I walked away, heart light as air. No more anger. No more hatred. Only one undeniable truth remained. I survived, and I won. We held a small, cozy wedding, attended only by James's family, a few close friends, and trusted colleagues. No biological parents, no sister. I didn't invite them, and they had no idea. That day, I wore a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of wild daisies, watching James waiting for me at the end of the aisle, his eyes shimmering with pride and pure love. I knew then I had truly found home. Life after the wedding wasn't always filled with sunshine, but it was real and overflowing with love. I changed jobs, completely, becoming the administrative manager for the restaurant system James and Jack owned. Work was busy, sometimes chaotic, but I cherished every moment building a dream with the man of my life. Less than a year after our wedding, I became pregnant with our first child. It was a journey both magical and challenging. The relentless morning sickness, the sleepless nights feeling tiny kicks inside my belly. Every time James placed his hand on my stomach, whispering stories to our baby, I knew I was living the happiest days of my life. We welcomed little Noah, a bright, lively boy with gray eyes, just like his father. 2 years later, our family grew again, with Liam, a small, stubborn, and bursting with energy little boy. Some evenings, I would sit in the rocking chair in our living room, Noah curled up on my lap, Liam crawling across the floor, while James played silly games to make them giggle, and my heart would overflow with gratitude. I was no longer the old Camilla, the girl trembling at the ruins of her life. I was the Camilla of today, a mother, a wife, a woman who rebuilt herself from the ashes. James's family loved me like their own flesh and blood. James's mother, Mrs. Margaret, treated me like a daughter. Every time James's grandparents saw me, they would whisper, Thank you for bringing light into our family. No one mentioned my past. No one pitied me. They loved me simply because I was me without conditions. And that was something I had once dreamed of but never received from my old family. Every time I looked at my children sleeping peacefully in my arms, I would tell myself, this is family. This is where I truly belong. It took me years to find myself. I had to walk through hell to find my heaven. But if I had to walk that path again, I wouldn't hesitate. Because now I had everything I once lacked: love, safety, and freedom. I thought I had truly escaped them. I believed nothing could drag me back into that old swamp again. But the greedy and toxic always find a way to crawl out from the muck when they need something. The first message came on a chilly March morning while I was making coffee for James before he left for work. An unknown number. A single, cold line. Camila, please contact us. It's a family matter. I didn't reply. I didn't need to guess to know who was clawing at the rotting memories. A few days later, a handwritten letter arrived at the restaurant James and Jack ran. The handwriting on the envelope was my mother's, messy and frantic. I almost threw it straight into the trash, but damn curiosity pulled my hand back. Inside was a long, tear-stained plea. Sierra is experiencing kidney failure. She needs an urgent transplant. We know we were wrong, that we hurt you. But please, just this once, help your sister. Family needs you. I dropped the letter onto the table, staring blankly for a few minutes. Family? A sister? Those words meant nothing more to me than meaningless noise. I ignored all messages. I stayed busy with work, with my 2 little boys, with the wonderful husband I was lucky to have. I had no time, and even less compassion, for those who had thrown me away like trash. But they didn't give up. One evening, while playing with Noah and Liam in the backyard, James stepped out with a heavy look on his face. He handed me the phone. Camila, they called the restaurant. They're at St. Mary's Hospital. I clenched my fists. I should have ignored it. I should have kept all the doors firmly shut. But a part of me, not out of love, but out of the need to end it once and for all, agreed to go. The next morning, I drove to the hospital alone. The waiting room was cold, reeking of bleach. My parents sat there, looking old and pitiful. Cheryl sobbed when she saw me, and Paul just hung his head like a shadow. I didn't hug him. I didn't greet them. I sat down across from them, crossed my legs, arms folded, my gaze sharp as steel. Takachvan. My mother choked out. "Oh, more Sierra. She only has 6 months left without a transplant. We ran the tests, and you're the best match. Her only chance." I laughed dryly. My sister? The one you protected when she betrayed me, the one you told me to forgive because she deserved happiness? No one dared answer. A young doctor invited me into a private consultation room showing charts, statistics, soft-spoken persuasion that my compatibility with Sierra was remarkably high, that I could save a life. Ticking up, I cut him off, stood up. Let me be clear and save us all some time. I turned to look at my mother, my father, and Sierra, lying in bed, hollow-cheeked but with the same arrogant gleam in her eyes. You shredded my heart without remorse. You threw me away like garbage when I was no longer useful. And now, you come begging for a piece of my body? I stepped closer to Sierra's bed, leaned down and spoke clearly. Listen carefully, Sierra. I could save you. I am your only chance. But I won't. My voice was sharp as a razor, freezing the entire room. You will die. And that will be the only gift the universe gives me after everything you've done. Sierra burst into sobs. My mother screamed. The most important person in your life? Camilla, you can't do this. She's your sister no matter what. I snapped around, my eyes blazing. She has never been my sister, and you have never been my family. I looked at my father, the man who never once defended me. And you, the man who only ever nodded along like a shadow. Don't expect my pity. I took a deep breath, feeling freedom surge into my lungs. I owe you nothing, no blood, no money, no compassion. From this moment on, you no longer exist in my life. Before anyone could react, I turned and walked out, pushing the door open wide. The door closed behind me with a dry, final click, like the ending punctuation of a rotting chapter of my life. Outside, snow fell lightly, covering the path in white. I held my head high, walking forward with purpose, never once looking back. I had once died for them. Now I lived, and lived brilliantly, for myself. From a woman who once collapsed under the betrayal of family and an ex-husband, Camila rose stronger than ever. She not only rebuilt her life from ruins, but also found true happiness beside her new husband and their two wonderful sons. Camila learned that blood does not define family. Love, respect, and loyalty do. Today, she lives a life of freedom, peace, and pride that she truly deserves. What do you think about Camilla's journey? Would you be strong enough to make the same choice she did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel to discover more emotional stories and valuable lessons about family life.